My name is Nick Anisich. I'm the Farm to School Program Manager at CDFA, and I'm on with the colleagues introduced in the chat, as well as Amy Garfinkel from CDFA. Her head is right above mine, on my screen at least, and then Rachel Pincus from CDFA too. So Amy is our technical wizard on the grant, and Rachel is making sure everything is running behind the scenes. So thank you to Amy and Rachel. There's so many great questions that we're getting, so many great opportunities. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you to Rachel and Amy for making all this happen. You're joining us today for the Q&A session for the Farm to School Incubator Grant Program. Today is March 7th. So there's just about 1 month left until the applications are due to be submitted on April 4th at 5 p.m. So about a month out. As you know, when you entered the call today, this is being recorded. The purpose of that is so that everybody could have access to this Q&A, whether you could attend it live or not. These questions and answers will be posted. So grateful everyone for bringing their questions here, and grateful to everyone in the recording. Okay, and then there's a couple of resources that we want to point to. They might get screen shared later if it's relevant for somebody's questions, but these are the two great places to find information on the grant. First is our grant webpage. Anyone who's been on here, our repeat viewers will know. I always say I'd probably be spending 1,000 hours on the grant webpage. I think we had 14,000 visitors to the webpage in February. Normally we get like 500. So really exciting that so many people are on it and looking at it and reviewing the details. It's so helpful in preparing your apps. The second link that we have here is the grant info session recording. That's where we go in depth on all of the details related to this grant program. So if you have, if you're wondering what the details are, it's on the webpage and it's in the info session recording. So there's those options. If you still have questions, then we have these Q&As. So if you're asking, well, that's all I'll say on that. So thank you all. And then I have 3 quick updates. Well, maybe 2 updates and then a process thing. So the first one is, if you've submitted a question to our email address, we thank you for it and we are working on it. We have an autoresponder that says, hey, we're working on your question as soon as possible. And we really are. There's a high volume of questions, but our team's working on it nonstop. So if you have asked a question to the inbox and you haven't received an answer yet, know that we're working on it and it's coming to you soon. The second thing is that if you are on this call today and you have a question about track 3, the Farm to Early Care and Education track, if you have a question on eligibility in track 3, please email us. There's so many great eligibility questions, and so many different early care and education organizations are incorporated differently and have different operations. Each one is its own unique thing. So what we've found is it's more effective to deal with those types of conversations and eligibility questions over email. So please email us at cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov with your track 3 eligibility questions. If you have other questions about track 3, we're happy to answer them here on the call, but eligibility for track 3, please just email us. It's easier that way. Okay, and then Jamina had a quick question in the chat. Can the link be posted in the chat? Yeah, we'll put these links in the chat right now for the grant program webpage, the grant info session recording, and then also our email address, cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. So we'll throw all those in the chat right now. Okay, and then last is just a process for this call. What we do is we just answer all your questions until there's no more questions. It's a pretty clear process. What we'd like you to do is go down to the bottom at the reactions button on Zoom, and you can go to raise hand, and then we're going to go through all the hands. Once we're done with all of the hands, then I'll go to questions that are in the chat. So if you would prefer to put your question in the chat, then you can do that. But no, we're going to do the hands first. If we try to do them both at once, it's just a lot. Yeah. Okay. Melanie, hold on one sec. We have D. Scott is the first hand up. So I'll go to D. How you doing, D?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I won. So my question is, we are a before and after school program. Our age range is 4.9 all the way up to 5th grade. And we've always been interested in doing something like this, but looking at the different tracks, I don't know if we even qualify.
Yeah, that's a hard one. So what I think the best way to handle it would actually just be to have you email us and just give us like a link to your program so that we can look at it online, and then just maybe outline, like you said, the population you serve most, and then what your goals are and what you'd like to accomplish. And then we'll let you know how the eligibility would work for you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. It's so hard. Every organization, it's like we do some of this and some of that, and we want to do more of this other thing over here. So just emailing whenever you feel like you're in that case is best. Thank you, Dee. Okay, next in line is Michelle Rich. Hi, Michelle. Hold on, Michelle, it has you muted.
That better? I think that fixed it.
There you are.
Awesome. So question about the reporting requirements, procurement check-in. So it says you need to incorporate all California procurement into the project. Can you tell me a little bit more? Do we need to actually track all of our California?
That's a good question. So it was cutting in and out. So I try camera off, but I think I got the gist of it, which is, do you have to track all of your purchases that are California grown in addition to what you're doing for the grant? So the grant just requires that you are tracking grant purchases and grant procurement. So whatever you're using grant dollars for, we want you to make sure that that is California grown, whole, or minimally processed food. We're doing outside of the grant program and all of your procurement on that front. It's just required that you're in alignment with USDA guidelines and CDE guidelines and all of that. Our evaluation team might ask you for an introduction to your distributor so that they can try to track down where that food is coming from, just to try to. But it's just grant related purchases. Amy, is that right? Yeah, we're getting nods of approval. So yes, it's just grant related purchases. So if you're going to use our grant to buy California grown, whole, or minimally processed foods, we got to know and be able to confirm that that is what you're saying it is.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Jamina, you're next. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I have two questions. One part is for track 3, can the funds be used? I know they can be used for infrastructure. So can they be used to do like the cabinets and the counters in a daycare for the kitchen?
Yeah, so what we say is anything that you need in order to implement these farm to school projects, we want to make that happen for you. So the infrastructure, like renovating a kitchen so that it's more food safe or accessible for them to be cooking alongside you, all of that sort of, or for you to be able to prep more locally grown whole ingredients, all that would be allowable as long as you can make that connection to the purpose of your project.
Okay. And my second question is, I know the MFO is 50 to 200,000. Is that for the course of the 2-year period, or is it per each year?
It's for the whole course of the grant. So you can determine how long you want your project to be in that big window, and then you can base your budget based on what you want to implement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Jesse Black, you're next.
Hi, I have two related questions. The first one is for track 1. We have multiple small schools in multiple small districts, and we're wondering, should they apply as individual schools, singles districts, or partnering with across districts?
Great question. So it's only eligible in track. Well, Amy, can you pull up the specific language for track 1 eligibility? So I want to share it with you. This is a really common question, especially for our smaller rural districts. It's like, hey, look, we're already working in collaboration in so many ways. So we have to figure that out. So Amy's going to screen share it here so we can see the exact language. Okay, who can apply? California Public School Districts, county offices of education, charter schools, and tribal schools that are school food authorities currently operating NSLP. So if those individual districts, Jesse, are school food authorities, then they are eligible to apply on their own. They're not allowed to do collaborative applications in track 1. But the county office could apply if they're a school food authority that oversees those other partners, then they could apply under that umbrella. But otherwise, they would apply individually.
And then a related question for track 4, the producers. If farmers in our area are contracting with multiple schools in the same district, does it count for them as a single contract, one per district, or multiple contracts, one per school?
Well, the only requirement in track is that they have one letter, and that it has to be from the person who operates the meal program. So it would probably be one, they would need the letter from the district. And it's okay that if they're only working with one school site.
Okay. Is there a way that they should express in their grant, if they are working with multiple schools, to show that? Is there a way that they should express that, or is it pretty obvious from what they're explaining?
It's really up to them on what they want to express. What's required is that they have the letter from one of the following entities: the public school district, county office of ed, charter school, or tribal school, that's a school food authority, or the child care center, if they're working with a child care center. If it's as like the one district letter will cover that it's multiple sites, like they could include that info, or they could include it in their, project narrative or something like that if they wanted to. So that's up to them.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and exciting that there's so many farms and so many schools interested. It's really difficult to navigate grants, especially in rural communities. So thank you so much for joining and helping. Okay, Aletta from Starbright. Did I get your name right? Welcome.
Hi, yeah, good. It's Alita, but Aletta works.
Welcome, Alita. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am working on the letters of intent, and I think I'll probably be able to get them from more than one district. And that's fine, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My question is, for the name on the letter of intent, can that be the farm name, even though we're a sole proprietor and the EIN is actually under my husband's name? I mean, we still have our DBA for the farm name, but I just want to make sure that if there's any restrictions about that, we get it right.
Thank you, Alita, for this question. And for everyone on this call, you could tell who's gone through grants before. You're like, we are so detailed. We want to make sure everything is aligned. So that's great. Amy, is there a preference on who's on that letter of intent, or it's really just like, hey, we know them and we're going to work with them?
Yeah, hi, Alita. Great question. I'm gonna screen share the track 4 application questions just so I can provide a really specific response in case it's helpful. So these are on our webpage. It's just the questions for the application and the review criteria. So the second question in this first foundational info section is legal business name. And it says, please enter the legal business name of the entity that will serve as lead for the project and will receive grant funds if awarded. And that has some additional instructions. And then it says, all of the responses in this foundational information section should correspond with the legal business name you provide. So that would apply to the letter of intent as well. So whatever you decide to put here, you would just have everything kind of align with that name that you choose. Does that help with your question?
Sort of. I mean, when I was looking at previous grants that had been awarded, everything was listed under a farm name rather than an individual's name. So I would prefer to just put it under the farm name, but I want to make sure, because the EIN is attached to a human person's name, that wouldn't be an issue. Like if you're continuing reading on here, it says the unique business tax identification number. So that tax identification number is attached to my husband's name.
And not to Starbright.
Well, I mean, except for that, our business is Starbright Acres Family Farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So it just says the name should match the name on the tax file with the IRS. So if that's his, then you can put his name. And if you want to put parentheses Starbright, I think that's fine. Because we just want to line up for contracts purposes. That's
Okay.
all. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we thought, well, we could put, Ken Barrett, DBA, Starbright Acres Family Farm, or something like that.
I think that would be fine for this case.
Yeah, if it's if your farm name's the DBA, then you can totally do that in parentheses. One of the examples of a previous grant round would be Scott Burnt, and it's DBA Fox Farm. So that's how we did for some of them before as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's great,
Yeah.
because I think it might be a little confusing for the entities that are writing to not have the farm name on the letter of intent.
Right.
Okay.
They're like, I know Alita. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what's going on with this other stuff. So yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
See, we work it out together. All right. Thank you. Okay. Claudia, welcome.
Thank you. So I have two questions, not related, but I was wondering, and this might be a question might have been answered before, but I just want to make sure. Let's say we have multiple school districts and they do have various free and reduced meals, I guess eligibility or percentage. And then there's this scoring system. Will you guys just go from the highest to the lowest and score it based on that? So that's the first question. How are you? Some of them are less than others, basically.
Are you thinking of track 1 or track 2?
For track 2, for the points of the school free and reduced meals.
Mm-hmm. Amy, are you able to pull that up in the scorecard? Yeah, so Amy will pull it up on the scorecard and we'll look at it. And for everyone on the call, the scorecard, every application question and how it will be scored is posted on our webpage also. So if you're ever wondering, how much time, how are we going to answer this? It's all here on the scorecard. Amy, can you kind of break this down?
Yeah, hi Claudia, great question. So yeah, if you're applying to track 2, then in both the school food and education project categories, there is this section under community need that you're referencing about the free and reduced price eligibility rate. So it's the average FRPM rate across your school food authority project partners. So it would be like summing those up and then taking the average based on how many there are. And then whatever that result is, then it would use this scoring criteria. And this is not something that you as the applicant need to calculate. It's something that, like, if you want to know what it would be, you're of course welcome to. We put the data source that we'll be referencing here, but it's not something you'll need to respond to in the application.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
The second question is more about eligibility on what we could purchase for the producer training. So let's say we want to purchase a mill that we will buy for the farm, and the farm will actually set it up at their farm so we can host producer trainings and value added milling capabilities. So grain producers, small grain producers could come to this farm and then, observe and learn from that. So that equipment will be eligible as part of the producer training?
Yeah, that would be eligible. And the thing to keep in mind is because a lot of infrastructure and equipment and stuff, it can be used for other business uses also, right? So what we say is think about what percentage of the time will that item be used for your farm to school project, and then you'd be eligible to bill for that percentage. So let's say 100% of the time it's going to be used for farm to school, then you could bill the whole thing to the grant. If half the time it's going to be farm to school and the other half of the time they're going to use it for their own milling needs for their own business, then you would bill half the cost to the grant.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Yeah. Thanks, Claudia. Okay, Neola Crosby, welcome.
Sorry, is that me? No.
That's you. I hope I got your name right. Welcome.
Neola, yes. That's
Neola, yeah.
I was trying to, I did unmute myself, correct.
Yeah.
So
It was great.
we have a really small preschool, and the students are like ages 2 to 5 years old. We are already growing vegetables and fruits at our school. And so we have soil, we have the seeds, we have the containers. And so my question is, I'm trying to find out, you know, being as a small school and what we're doing is small scale, if this would kind of make sense for us. Because we just want to buy, you know, more of the bins, more seed, more soil. And so I'm wondering, you know, what's the smallest grant amount? I hear people saying like 50,000. We wouldn't need $50,000, but so I'm wondering about that. And my second question is, you know, currently we're just getting the seed like from Home Depot and places like that. Would we have to get it from somewhere else? Those are my two questions.
Yeah, good questions. I'm going to hand the first one to Amy to answer.
Sure. Hi, Neola. Thanks for sharing about your preschool. Yeah, so for track 3, the award range is 50,000 to 200,000. So the minimum award amount to apply for in track 3 would be 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in terms of like the what track 3 funds, it's 2 prongs. So track 3 both funds like a procurement side and a hands-on food education side. And so the procurement side is funding the procurement of California grown or produced whole or minimally processed food for incorporation into ECE meals, snacks, or food boxes at your program. And then the hands-on food education side is engaging young children at your site in hands-on food education opportunities. And so that's kind of the two-pronged focus of the track 3 application. We can put the track 3 applications and review criteria document in the chat if you're interested in just kind of taking a look on what it's asking to see like if this might be a fit for what you're interested in. And the other thing we can do too is we can introduce you to a regional team member on our team who's serving your region. If you decide that you're not interested in applying to this grant this time, but instead maybe you want to see if there are like other funding sources that have like smaller garden grant awards. Our team can try to, you know, see if there are other funding sources to connect you to.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, please email us. We'll put the email address again in the chat and we can help connect you to someone on our team.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Amy. Okay, Melanie. Hello, welcome. I saw you had some questions in the chat too, so we can do them live, or if you just want me to read them from the chat, we could do that too.
Let's just do it live. Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
I have 3-4 questions. One, it's what's the specific difference between technical assistance versus implementation?
That's a good question. Like for track 2?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we're considering technical assistance and implementation, a lot of the time, like an outside entity will just come in and do something for the school district. Do it for you. We're going to run the garden programs. We're going to be the garden teachers. And, you know, the school district, you guys just keep saying yes. That's great. We consider technical assistance more about building capacity and skills in partnership. So if you're thinking about it like in the frame of school gardens, it would be like, hey, we're going to teach some school garden lessons ourselves, but then we're also going to be training your teachers on how to manage and run this themselves.
Okay, so I can mix the process because it's a process. I can create the classes, invite the teachers, and teach the teachers how to do the classes.
Exactly. And of course, part of that, you know, they need it modeled. So you'll have to be the lead teacher at part of it so they could see how it works. And, you know, what do you say when the kids are running around with the garden shears? You know?
Okay. My other question is, we are a small community and we tend to work together especially with grants, can partners be funded through different tracks for the same community?
Yes, as long as each project is like submitted by an eligible entity. So like if the school districts wanted to apply in track 1, and then the nonprofit technical assist or whatever the technical assistance providers are going to be in track 2, and the farmers are going to apply in track 4, that is all okay. And what we say is make sure that there's no duplicative costs. So there's no like double billing, you know, and then also make sure that you're applying for unique elements of the project that could stand up on their own if not everything got funded. Because it's possible that maybe only the producers get funded, but not the schools, or only the schools get funded, but not the producers. So you want to make sure that the projects can stand on their own, even if they don't all get funded, and then that there's no duplicative costs. Amy, anything else on that one? I feel like I always miss one thing on that one. The duplicative costs, I got that. It's a lot of rules even for us. Okay, Melanie, what's next?
So if it would be okay if okay, whatever. I'll ask that later. Can these activities be an after-school program, or do they have to be within the school hours?
What we require for track 2 is that it's a school food authority that you're partnering with, or an ECE center. And Amy, they have to be operating CACFP for that one, or just that they're a eligible entity?
Oh yes, for track 2, the partner has to be a California Public School District, County Office of Ed, tribal school or tribal school, charter school or tribal school. That's a California School Food Authority currently operating the NSLP. For track 4, that's where it could be any of those, or a childcare center or participating in CACFP.
Thank you for clarifying that. So are you thinking about track 2 with this question, Melanie, or track 4?
No, track 2.
Yeah, track 2. So it has to be a school food authority operating the National School Lunch Program. As long as they're doing that, if you're working with them on implementing after school stuff, that's fine. That would be allowable.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I think that's it. So if we will it make it complicated if we, let's say we apply for track 2, but the district is applying for track 1 and we're supporting the district on that application? Is that a problem or no?
It would only be a problem if there's duplication of things. So let's say like they wrote in their application that they're going to use you as a contractor to help with after school programs. And then in track 2, you wrote CDFA funding to cover the costs of you operating the after school programs. So as long as you keep the activities separate and make sure that you're able to keep them distinct. And that's like, for us, we have to track it in the agreement and we make sure in the contract that it's all separate. But it's really like, that's a question for you all, because it's going to be the billing and reporting and invoicing and you guys tracking all of that, that's an extra layer for you all, so that you can keep it organized and you have a good system for that.
Okay, good. So it's not an issue if we as a community decide to apply for different tracks. We are not going to be not funded because all the money is going to the same community.
Correct. That's right.
Thank you.
So we look at each track, and then at the end, what we do is we're going to look at everybody who's projected, if you scores, who gets all the funding. And then we'll look and see, are there certain areas that don't have any funding that had competitive applications? So at the end, we do look at geographically the spread and make sure that each of our regions in California does get funding. Can't really say how much that will change things right now. Last year, it was like, oh man, the spread is great. Just use the scores. This is awesome. So that is something we take into consideration at the very end. But I think it's worth it for your community to maximize every opportunity for funding and send those. And what community are you in?
Del Norte County.
Oh yeah. I mean, we got to get some stuff going all the way up there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for your questions. Let us know if you have others. Okay. Thank you. All right. And it's Mina, right? Is next. It should be if you move it kind of left.
Hi, it's me, Meenakshi.
Yeah,
from
Meenakshi,
my family,
welcome.
yeah, Meenakshi, me, my family childcare.
Yeah.
I'm in track 3,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to contact so many agencies, but they are lack of resources. So
Okay.
can you guys provide us a non-profit organization list, something like that? Because it's like I'm trying to reach so many people, and agencies are telling us that this is new. I'm in Ventura County. This is new to us, and we have lack of resources. So sorry, we can't help you. So it's like it's frustrating for us.
Yeah.
So can you provide us more information or some more like non-profit organizations list? So it will be much better.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first, can you please email us the list of organizations you've reached out to?
Yeah,
and
sure,
then
definitely.
what we'll do is we'll have our regional lead, and she's actually on this call, Jackie Day. Hi, Jackie. I saw you were on today. Thank you for joining. Jackie is our network lead that covers that region. So we'll send it to Jackie, and then Jackie will research some other nonprofits and help and see if and send you the list so that you could continue the outreach. And we don't know all of them, so it's not like we're going to be able to vet them and say, hey, this is an absolutely perfect resource. We work with them all the time, but just to try to help, yeah, we'll happily do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Hello. All right, I have a slew of questions, but I'll be fair.
You're good. You're good. We're doing good on time today.
Yeah, great. On the multiple district side, so we have a situation where there's multiple districts in a region who actually are trying to partner and create a food service director that would oversee multiple districts, right? And so they really want to make changes at a wider level. And so as a track 1, there's one district that's kind of leading that effort, but some of the, they're basically trying to figure out how they would share the costs and all of that. So that is a partnership that can that be a track 1 because under that initial district that's trying to set it up.
Well, first, do you guys know Sierra Harvest?
Sorry?
Do you know Sierra Harvest? Amy and the team at Sierra Harvest?
I don't know.
They just took a bunch of small rural districts and created a joint powers of authority and had all these and kind of consolidated in a similar way to what you're describing. So I think first we want to make that connection for you.
Okay.
So that they can share that resource. And it really is a unique situation where multiple districts want to just consolidate in that way. That's first. And then Amy, my team, not Sierra Harvest Amy, but Amy Garfinkel. Amy, what do you think on that front for eligibility? If it's one district is gonna be the lead, but supporting multiple districts, is that allowable?
Yeah, great question. Hi, Wendy. I have a question for you first, if that's okay. Is the one district serving as the school food authority for the other districts?
They are for one of them. So they've already adopted one of them, but the other 2 are not. They're separately school food authorities, but they're basically trying to realign their menus and align their training so that they're working together in a region. And they sort of swap and go to different sites to learn because that's, they basically work by themselves and now they have a peer group, right? So there are basically 3, multiple schools. Some of them are in that relationship, cooking for the other, but not all of them.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much for sharing. And then one more question, and I promise I'll answer your question. So the small school districts that are their own school food authority, they are not interested in applying on their own?
Well, they're so small that I feel like their chance of getting one, like, okay, we could flood you with 3 applications, but really what they want to do is work together because they know that they're small schools, but together they have this plan that's a really solid project across those schools. But if they can't each apply for the crossover, that's tricky for them, right?
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I'm gonna pull up this track 1 eligibility again, just because, yeah, like Nick said, there are a lot of details. So the first thing is, yeah, any school district in California that's a school food authority currently operating the NSLP is eligible to apply to track 1. Then we also have this note about school food authorities. So we say that a school district that serves as the SFA for multiple school districts may, if desired, include those entities in their proposed project by including those school sites that the project will serve in their application. So that one school district that's the SFA for multiple districts would still be limited to one track 1 application, but they could include the other districts that their SFA serves in their application. The school district you mentioned that's not an SFA itself would not be eligible to apply on its own to track 1, but the other districts that are their own SFA could apply on their own to track 1 if they wanted to. And then the other thing about track 1, not related to eligibility, but related to allowable costs, and this is actually an allowable cost across all 4 funding tracks, mini grants. That is an allowable cost under either like other costs or contractual costs, kind of depending on the situation. So that is, yeah, a possibility in the budget section of the application.
But in that, like in this, you're saying that the 2 school districts that already have their relationship, they can apply, like that makes sense. But this other district that is its own SFA, could they receive a mini grant from that initial one?
Yeah, if that's something that the applicant district would like to include in their proposed project, they could propose that and, you know, describe how that aligns with their project work plan.
Okay. Okay. So they could basically be, I mean, if they're basically trying to come together, if they were in a sense contracting to the other districts, that seems like it could be possible. Okay.
Yeah, because contractual costs are allowable too. Yeah, you're totally right.
Okay.
And the other thing, just if as you're filling out the or as they are filling out the track 1 application, because it's a little more complex with like the different entities, if they have questions about the funding formula piece and what to include in the enrollment, please email us or have them email us so we can make sure to provide support on that piece.
Okay, I mean, that was, I guess, another question which applies also for track 2. Is it a weighted average or a straight average? Because you said like an average, but I feel like it should be, is it student to population weighted or of the free reduced lunch?
That's a really good question. For track 1, the question in the community needs section that asks about free and reduced meal eligibility rate, in track 1, it's specifically based on the school sites within the applicant entity, so like within the applicant school district that the project will serve. In track 2, it's based on the free and reduced meal price eligibility rate of the school entity partner as a whole.
Okay, but if there's multiple, you don't have to have multiple, but if you do, is that beneficial for track 2?
Yeah, so in track 2, the partnership requirement is just to have at least one of these eligible partners in school food and education, and then at least one of these eligible school partners and at least one food producer partner. So it's up to the applicant if they would like to include more than the minimum partnership requirement.
Okay. On, I guess, track 1, that just to follow up on that question that somebody else asked about procurement reporting, on page 37, this is where it was the confusing piece. So page 37. Where it says annual procurement check-in, submit data annually for practices for the duration of the grant and the following year after the end of the project term. This includes all track 1 and track 3 grant recipients, as all must incorporate California food procurement into their project, even if they decide to not use grant funds for this procurement. So that's the part that I think that other person asked about too, that makes it sound like you have to do all of your California procurement reporting. So I just want to make sure that I'm not, was the intent there then that if you applied for grant funds to use procurement and then you didn't use grant funds, but you still did procurement, then you have to report it, or do you have to report it in all cases? You see what the question there is?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. So let's see. So first I want to go to this, sorry for the scrolling, to this section of allowable costs for track 1, and it's similar under track 3. So this is page 22 of the RFA.
Yep.
So it's saying that like all track 1 projects must both incorporate, procurement of California grown and produced full minimum processed foods for incorporation of school meals and engage students in hands-on food education that complement the meal program. And so, but then we also say that applicants have the flexibility to determine which of the following allowable costs they would like to incorporate into their project. So like say a track 1 applicant already has a funding stream that they're using for California food procurement. And so California food procurement is going to be a component of the proposed project, but they're just using another funding source for it, then that would be okay. And there's a section in the track 1 application where, it asks how much the applicant is proposing to allocate to these food procurement costs. And if it's none, then there's a follow-up question that asks like, what are the other funding sources that the applicant will be using for that? And so there's also a procurement work plan section of the track 1 application. So that is required even if the proposal for grant funds does not include funds for food procurement. So this is a long answer. All of that to say, and I think you were already saying this, so it might be repetitive, but yeah, procurement and education are both required components like of the project work plan. Right. Even if the funding is going to come from other sources, like per this paragraph.
If you've said that it's coming from other sources, is that what you're going to have to report on? Like once you've said, yes, we're doing this amount of procurement and it's coming from those, local food for schools or some other place, I guess the assumption based on what you said earlier is that you do not have to then report on that necessarily. I mean, you might want to, but you're not required. I think it's just a reporting concern from some of the districts.
I see. Yeah. So going back to what Nick was saying about in terms of financial reporting, like over the course of the grant term, that is where, like Nick was saying, the requirement is reporting on what is grant funded. So the annual procurement piece, this is something we'll have more details on later in the grant term. So we don't, beyond what's written here, there aren't more details about this piece yet.
Okay. But you
just to jump in on it, Wendy, well, sorry, just to jump in on it too. That's been in there since our first grant. And the intent of writing that was to be able to see if schools are still doing procurement after their grant term. So it's kind of a thing that we've done upon request, where we ask schools to pull it for us to be able to see, but it's not something that we have like done for every grantee everywhere. So I think we will provide an update in the FAQs on our webpage around this issue to provide more clarity. Thank you for flagging it.
Okay, and sorry I didn't catch it earlier.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it really is a group effort. Like there's so many things here and so many details, and we love it when these things get pointed out because we want to simplify every year.
Right. So track 2, I have 2 more questions. So track 2 is a very clear either or, right? That one of the 3 categories, either or. And so coming from the producer side or coming from the school food side, education side, certainly there is a value from our perspective of working across that. And, if you're going to procure, you've got to talk to schools. So it just felt very strong, the language about it can only be one and it has to be separated. And so I'm just trying to get a little more clarification there on if you're very distinctly trying to segment them more dramatically than has been done in the past or something, like you really have some different idea of the kind of entities you're looking to serve.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Question on track 2, the technical assistance grant. In track 2, we ask technical assistance organizations to, I always say, choose a bucket. So you can choose the school food bucket and help school food transformation happen. You can choose the education bucket and work with and school districts. And then the third bucket is producer training. So you could go out and help farms. So we're trying to say, like, look, if you have expertise in one of these things, you don't have to be an expert in all 3 in order to be eligible, which used to be the case in track 2, is that we wanted everyone to be able to do everything. And I think what we found is not everyone can do everything.
Right.
Shocker on that front, right? But so we wanted to allow specialization in those areas. Within each of those buckets, there's a couple of questions that do relate to the other issue areas.
Yeah.
So you can cross, it's okay to have overlap in those things into those other areas. So that's
that
definitely okay.
Okay. And then last question is on track 4. So school that has a school garden that they are looking to move into more production and bring the food into the meal program. So I know the school can't apply as a track 4, but if they have an entity that is working on that garden transition, you say that you can't have no new farm conversions, but if you're basically already working on a site that's there and in use, and you're trying to convert it to something more, is that considered a new use?
I mean, I think you could make the case it's not. You can make the case that it's like, hey, we're scaling food production in this space. And you could make that case in, and then we'll see what happens in scoring and eligibility. Like, we can't guarantee anything there. Otherwise, in track, as long as it's, like you said, an outside entity who's operating that and going to be scaling it to that farm level, that would be okay. If it's still a school garden, that's fine. If it's a school garden, then they could use track 1 funding in order to fund the school garden, because garden to cafeteria is an educational initiative. It doesn't have that broader economic impact actually supporting small farms in the community, which is what we're really looking for in track 4 and with procurement dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Okay, a thing in the chat from Ozma about please answer another meeting at 11. We're going to go through them as quick as we can, and then this recording will be posted. So even if you're not here, we'll post the recording, and then you can ahead to when we answer your question. And it says my internet connection is unstable. So at any time, Amy, please take over. Okay, you're next. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, hello. So we are a group of small farmers, producers who want to work in the spirit of cooperation, and it goes back to that duplicative costs. And so we want to apply individually, but we also want to have that support because of where we live. It's really hard to get employment, and like I don't think anyone's going to want to come work for our farm, unfortunately. So we wanted to like join together and be able to like, if someone's raising a greenhouse, we'll all come over and help, put it together and build it together. And so really have that. And, if you lose a crop as a farmer, we have another farmer growing the same crop to still supply food to the schools. We all have the same schools that we're applying to. So we'll all have our independent letters of intent with the schools. But we want to, we have like a group name. We want to put that on our letter of intent for a project, and kind of really work together, but apply individually because we all need a lot of the same infrastructure. And so with that, like the question would be, so like, yeah, we all need like greenhouses or washing and packing storage facilities. Would those be considered duplicate costs?
Each of your farms is individually, and you're all saying like, yeah, we all want a greenhouse and a wash station, like that's okay because they're all separate costs, right? Okay. So that's all right. It would be like if you were all going to use the same greenhouse, but you all wrote the full cost of the greenhouse into your apps. But if it's if they're all individual purchases, then that's not duplicative because they're all individual. So that would be fine. And then Amy, is there anything you want to add on just co-ops or, you know, legally? I don't know, Nicole, are you interested in legally creating a co-op, or that's just like the culture? You guys just have to work together.
Both actually. Yeah. We'd like to probably within the next year or so create like a nonprofit where we can share equipment, have, you know, rental style shared equipment and all that. Well, my computer needs to be plugged in. And so, yeah, so we were thinking like if for bigger costs, like say tractor, can we share the tractor within our group, or is that not allowable?
I mean, difficult. This one's so tough. This is where we hate being the government. And I'm like, man, if I was just a private philanthropist, I'd be like, yeah, how awesome. This is the best. But so because we're the government, what we would say is like each individual project would have to put, you know, same thing like I answered with Claudia earlier for the milling operation that will be shared. Think, well, what percentage of that thing's life will be used for your farm to school project?
Okay.
And then you would write in that amount for your project. But Amy, like it could get weird, right? With all that, so I almost don't want to get into all of it, but it could get weird on like leasing it out and having other people like putting in leasing costs of a tractor or loaning costs of a tractor, like tractor rental into their agreement. I don't know how that would work. Amy, anything to add there while I just dig us a deep hole?
Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much for joining in these great questions. Yeah, I think an important thing to note would just be, and let me find the page of the RFA, but it's under eligibility and exclusions on page 16. And it just has this language that Nick was referencing about like, you know, projects being not duplicative. And then it also says, which may apply to this situation, proposed projects may complement each other, but should each be able to stand on their own in case one of the complementary projects receives funding, but another does not. So that's like kind of what Nick was saying earlier. So I think perhaps taking a look at those lines, and then if it's still confusing, then reaching out to us again. And then the other thing is just in track 4. So like say it's like 4 different farms that meet the track 4 criteria and they each want to apply individually. That's definitely an option. And then another option too is if like one of the farmers wants to apply, and then since mini grants are an allowable cost, like, you know, include the collaborating farmers in that one proposal, like that way as collaborators. So so that would be if the group just wants to submit like one application together. But yeah, but also if it's like 4 separate entities that meet the criteria, then they could each submit their own application in track 4.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, we're almost to time here, and we have 2 more hands and then lots of good questions in the chat. So again, if you are worried on time and you got to call, we're going to post the recording of this and you could just skip to the end and catch right back up to when we answer the questions. 3 hands. Okay. All right, Rob, how's it going?
Going good. Thank you for the Q&A. Question. So for prior farm to school incubator awardees, they are still eligible to apply for another round, if it's an expansion of their current project or adding another component, correct? For both schools and for farmers, right?
Exactly. They can't apply for the same exact project, but if they're applying for phase 2 or the next evolution or an expansion, you know, you can't just cut and paste the thing. So you just got to tell, how is this year going to be different? How will you keep the costs separate? And there's special questions in the application that you'll specifically detail that stuff out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Andrea or Andrea, I saw you had some great questions in the chat too on food hubs. Hi, hold on, it's you. Yeah, hi.
Figured I'd raise my hand and ask them in person. Calling from Del Norte and Tribal Lands up here. We're the Seafood Council, and we are one of those organizations that does everything. We do education, emergency, we do food hub, we do aggregation.
Yeah.
So are in lots of different places. So Melanie is one of my staff members.
Oh, cool.
So for the food hub, it's in the vein of what everyone's asking. It's particularly up here where in rural Northern California, you got to work together. So if we were to apply for track 4 food hub, could we have mini grants for our producers that kind of hit some of their pieces?
Yes, totally.
Great. And then we collaborate very closely with Humboldt, and there's the Humboldt Food Hub, North Coast Growers Association, and then our beginning hub. Could they apply, because they already are supplying food to both counties? Could they apply to provide food to both counties with a subcontract to us for the piece we do and mini grants for our producers?
If they want it that way, you could, and you just would have to make sure there's no duplicate costs, is all. So
Yeah,
like you can, yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah. That would be good.
All right. Awesome.
I have to tell you, this is like, when we started this grant, it was me and Amy and Rachel, the person, we're like, how can we get people from all over the state to want to do this and like be invested? And to hear that it's like, there's 2 food hubs in the North Coast, first of all, and then they want to collaborate and they want to give resources out to the farmers. It's like the best. It's
nice.
Like, seriously, it's incredible that to see how this has grown, and we're super excited. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Elise, I almost called you Baker. Elise Blaker, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My question is about the letter of intents. I apologize, I jumped on a little late if this has already been asked. But I, as a track 4, have noticed, and this is more so maybe something that will just be kind of, I wasn't sure how you guys would want to address it, is that the other producers in the area that are applying, we have all kind of found that the buyers are getting overwhelmed with the individual letter of intents. And with it being such a small community, they're so busy. And I am worried it's a deterrent for them to want to work with us, because they don't have the time and the means to each individually fill out a letter of intent for us. And so we've already stopped getting kind of responses from some of these buyers who were initially really excited. And so do you guys have a recommendation to work through this? Can they do a bulk letter for our area? We don't have a school district per se. We're pretty spread out. And so I don't really know how to continue moving forward with trying to keep them on board with us.
So this is track 4. You want to apply, and how do we get people to actually get these letters of intent back to you? Right?
Yes, because there's multiple producers reaching out, and they each have to have an individual letter of intent, but these buyers don't have the time to write, multiple letters of intents. And I think it's kind of a deterrent for them.
Yeah, totally hear it. This has been a challenge in the past also in letters of commitment or partnership letters, and some large school districts flooded with them too. And so it's definitely a challenge. Amy, can you go through what's the specific requirement? It's that each producer app needs the one signed letter, correct, of intent that we use on the webpage. Anything in addition to that? No. So here's what I would say, Elise, it's a super hard situation. And there's a couple things that I would recommend trying, but it's no guarantee. The first thing that I'll say is, if they're having a hard time just signing the letter of intent for so many individual producers, I could imagine that it will be very difficult for them to coordinate individual purchases from so many producers as well, because that's even more paperwork and even more process for them to make those buys. So I think it might be something to have an open and transparent conversation with that person and go, look, I know you're getting hit up a million times by, do you have a priority here? How are they feeling about it? And the more open and honest that communication can be, the better. To see if they want to prioritize certain apps over others or certain types of products over others in order to make that happen. The second thing is, I think anybody can start filling out the form as long as they sign it and give their approval on it. I think if you helped draft some of the sample responses for them to save them time, as long as they review it and sign it, that's always okay. That's how everyone does business everywhere, right? Is like have it drafted for them. And then they just review and sign is an option. We prefer that they fill it out, but as long as they're reviewing and approving it and making sure that it's in alignment with their goals, that's and then I don't really have a third thing. So I would say those two. It's definitely hard. I guess the third thing could be just a connection. Are you in the North State, Elise?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so Jen on our team.
Yes.
I mean, Jen, yeah. So it could be possible for her to bring in other school food authorities. There she is. Hi, Jen. Could be possible for her to help connect to other school food authorities or other eligible entities that would be interested and maybe have more capacity to sign on. Because you just need one letter of intent signed to be eligible to apply. It's allowable to work with other partners in addition to those ones signed. So you might have to get a signature somewhere else and then include it in your scope of work that you'll work with those people and try to expand into additional markets.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I wish there was a better response. It's just so hard with so many people pulled so many ways. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Elise. All right. I'm going to go quickly through the questions in the chat. We've answered a bunch of them, which is amazing. Melanie and Andrea's and Wendy. So thank you. And then I'll just take my time going through. So Michelle Rich had a question. For me, the chat is time stamped. I don't know if it is for you also, but at 10:17 a.m., Michelle had the question. She's a school district applying in track 1, it sounded like. We may have a change next year in the staff member who runs our school meals program. Would we need to address this in the application? That's a good thing to note. There is a section when it's in the track 1 application that asks, what challenges do you expect to arise and how would you overcome them? Something like that. It's early on in the app. This would be a great opportunity to address that question. We expect for a staff change to come up and that will be a challenge because we'll have to go through a hiring process. I don't want to answer it for you, but you could just address it in that section of what the challenge will be and how you will address it. I think that's so helpful for scorers of the application to know that the applicant is thoughtful, reflective, and ready to submit a successful project. I'd really encourage people to bring up the challenges and how you will address them instead of burying them. Talk to her. Ozma. Here's Ozma's question. Sorry we missed you. Hopefully you're on the recording here. Track 1, question 1. We will be using the same small local farmer that we are using currently for local food for schools. Or is there another list of small farmers on CDFA? So it's okay to use the same farmers that you're already using. That's definitely okay. If you would like to work with I think you're in Fullerton. So if you'd like to work with our regional team down there, please email us, cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov, and our regional team can help connect you to other farmers in your region. So that would be great. Question 2, can these funds be used for the purchase of equipment? Yes, as long as that equipment is going to be used for your farm to school project, you can purchase equipment. Just like we've said earlier on the call, whatever percentage of that equipment will be used for farm to school, then that's how much you can bill us for. So if it's going to be half time for farm to school and half time for non-farm to school, then you can bill us for 50% of that cost. If you're going to use it 75% of the time for your farm to school project, 25% of the time for other stuff, then you can bill us 75%. 2 more. Okay, 2 more. Can small mini farmers markets at a school site qualify for nutrition education? It could totally. It sounds like an educational activity to me. When you outline it in your application, just make sure that you explain what the kids will be educated on, who will be delivering that education, if they're credentialed or not, if they're a farmer or not. Just really outline the specifics of what you plan to implement, and we can go from there. And then last question do we need to submit one application for each school site? No, as a school food authority, you would just submit for for all the sites that you are planning to serve. Is that right, Amy? Is there any specificity on that last question for, let's say they have 20 school sites? They don't need to submit 20 work plans, right?
Right. A school district that is a school food authority currently operating on SLP would be eligible to submit one app in track 1. And then there is a question asked in the application asking about which school sites within the district the project will serve.
Love it. Thank you. Okay, and then I'm trying to look, people are still on. The next question was 1028. And Nicole, I'll come back to you if that's a new hand. The next question was at 1028 from Elizabeth Garcia. If my FCC is participating in a food program, can we still apply? Please email us if that's a track 3 eligibility question. Just email us at cafarmschool@cdfa.ca.gov. Tell us all about your organization and what you operate and who you serve. Oh, there you are, Elizabeth. Hi. Who you serve and all of those things. And then we will let you know how you will be eligible to apply. Yeah. Okay, Andrea Garcia, I'm a family childcare. If I get California University for a partnership, can I apply? Or do they have to apply and mention me as a partnership? That's a great question. Again, please email us the specifics. Which California university, what role do they play in supporting you? Would love to be able to answer that more specifically. You email us at our email address. Okay, and then Elizabeth, you had another question. Are funds dispersed in one lump sum or over time based on project completion? So this is set up as a reimbursement grant. So you would spend the money and then send us the invoice, and then we would pay you back. There are options for advance payment if you meet certain requirements. So that's an option to explore. And Amy, are those hyperlinked in the RFA, the advance payment things? Do you know what page? This is a real Jeopardy test for Amy. What page of the RFA is this information on?
Page 15.
On page 15, Elizabeth, in the RFA. So that will have the reimbursement information and then also the advance payment regulations to see if you would qualify for advance payment. And then of course, there's a bunch of other rules and stuff that we would have to go through. So it all starts off baseline, it's reimbursement. Okay. Then at 1038, we had a great Sierra Harvest link. Thank you, Jen, for putting that in there. And Wendy, you can see the address and web page there for their joint powers of authority. It's been a huge project, multi-year project, but it seems like they're having good success in making progress. Okay. Annette asked, is there any support or resources for grant writing? We cannot recommend any one specific grant writer. We don't have a team of grant writers. We haven't really prepped any specific grant writers on our specific grant program. So what I would recommend is just going into the application and looking at the scorecard alongside and doing your best to answer the questions as clear as you can. And then using our inbox and our Q&A sessions here to get specific help on your application. So that way you could come to us and say, hey, on track 4, question 17B, what do you mean by this question? And then we can give more specific details on that stuff. So that's what I would recommend right now is going in. You can also, of course, go to Google and try to find grant writers near you, but it's definitely a difficult situation, and we understand that, and use us as much as possible for all your questions. Okay, and then Andrea, we asked hers. Okay, Lacey had a question at 10:46 a.m. Track 4, must the schools we want to work with be a public or a charter school and not private schools? That's correct. For track 4, we cannot work with producer with a private school. So the eligibility information is in the RFA for track 4, and it outlines specifically who you have to partner with. Okay, and then Asma, sorry we missed you for your 11 o'clock question. And then Elizabeth had one more. Do you have a department that works with track 3 for family daycares? If you do, share a link. So it's just our team works with the family daycares, and some of us have more experience with ECE than others. One of our team members, Sophia, used to run the Farm to ECE program in the National Farm to School Network, so she has a lot more experience on that topic area and can support. So Elizabeth, just email us and we can connect you to additional resources on that front. Yeah, thank you. I saw Jessica, your hand went up a couple times. Do you have a question?
Thank you so much. I was like thinking whether to text it or raise my hand.
No, you're good. Yeah.
You caught me. So we are mostly supporting as a technical agency, and I think you talked about earlier filling all the buckets. We are, even though we wish we didn't, but we are, because we're in a rural area, we are truly supporting the producers and the schools. None of our schools have received, this type of grant before, and we're just really trying as much to ensure that the application is manageable and not as daunting. The question that I had is regarding school districts. So one of the things that we're finding is that, for example, we have one district that has 5 different schools, and they all have their own kind of program that they would like to apply for. And so I'd like to understand if they have to apply as a district, given, the kind of governing laws that they have around the board, or are they able to apply individually?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm happy you stayed on and asked it. I know we're over time. So they would have to apply as the school district. Whoever is the school food authority has to apply. So normally that's at the district level is who the school food authority is. The reason for that is we need to make sure that everybody who has to say yes to this project happening is on board. So if sometimes when individual school sites want to do something that the district as a whole doesn't want to do, they can't actually get that yes. So the requirement is that the school food authority applies, and that ensures that whoever actually signs off on the buying of the food and the local procurement, that they are on board.
Thank you so much. And just quick kind follow-up to that. So because we are in a rural county, as you can imagine, the population size for the student count is pretty low. And so does that mean that, if they don't meet, like I think in total, they're about 500 students for all of the schools. So would they be capped at the 200,000 for that, or can they ask for anything else, can they go above that?
Yeah, so in track 1, there's a funding formula. And if you do the funding formula and do the multiplication and it comes out to less than the minimum award, then you apply for the minimum award, which that is, Amy, is that 200,000? Yeah, so it would be $200,000 to support 500 students. So for us,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully people need a lot, especially in rural communities. We need to invest in infrastructure and it's expensive. And so even though 200,000 for 500 kids sounds like a lot, it goes quick. So, okay, 11:18, we did pretty good, folks. We did pretty good. Fast at the beginning, wasn't it? Well, we're grateful for you. Again, this is going to be, this recording will be posted. So if you want to come back and listen in or check out your questions, we're so happy for that. Thank you, Wendy, for bringing up such good questions, and everyone on the call for sharing your questions. And shout out specifically, have to give a shout out to Gustavo too. Didn't even ask a question on camera the whole time. Just love seeing a human face. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us. And if you have other questions for us, please email us. There's also another info session in 12 minutes or another Q&A session in 12 minutes. So if you didn't get enough of it, just sign into the other link. So, okay, anything else to add, Amy? We're good? Okay, all right. Thanks, y'all. Thank you. Can't wait to see your applications. Okay, talk to you later.